I've had a great time. And the older you get.
Mr. Vice Chairman? I do that.
We bring this September 16th meeting of the Winterville Planning and Zoning Board to order. Welcome to each and every one of our board members and those who are in the audience. Do we have any excused absences or questions? We do not. The next item is approval of agenda of the 108-page packet that you received. There was the agenda, the minutes from the meeting and the agenda for tonight, which is item 5. So, with having time to review, we'll seek the approval of the agenda from the August 19th for tonight's meeting. A second. Okay, moved and properly second. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, you can vote sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, use the likewise sign. Next item, approval of the minutes for the August 19th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Board meeting.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from our August 19th meeting.
Second.
Okay, moved and properly second. All those in favor, use your voting sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, use your likewise same. All right, next item, staff election of officers.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Board. So we will, once a year after council ensures that everybody is up to date on their times and we have a new board, we will go through the election of chair and vice chair. Board can make recommendations on their chair and then make a vote if you wish. Yes, sir.
You're going to nominate Chairman?
I second that.
I guess we're waiting. I make a motion if we can move on to the vice chair.
Oh,
I'll make
you
a-
made a motion, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Thank you all for the vote of confidence. Our next item, we are looking to elect our vice chair who will open the floor for nomination for vice chair.
I make a motion for Doug Killian as vice chairman.
I'll second that.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, we'll close the nomination. All those in favor of Doug Killian as vice chair, you vote by aye.
Aye.
New business.
I would just like to say thank y'all both for serving. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, and thank you all for coming tonight. We've got a fairly packed board up there tonight. We've only got one extra seat. Haven't seen that in a while. So tonight we've got a fairly loaded agenda. First, we will start with Cornerstone Section 2, Phase 3. This is a final plat. Cornerstone is located off of Fire Tower Road. It's an existing subdivision with smaller lots, R6 zoning district. The applicant is Stroud Engineering. What you'll see tonight is the last phase of Cornerstone. After this is final platted and built out, there will be no more phases to this subdivision. This will be the last 11 lots of the subdivision. It's a 3.32 acre site, again, zoned R6 zoning district. If we are looking right here, this is Fire Tower Road, and this is Cornerstone Drive. We are looking at the very last 3 acres in the very back of the subdivision. This is a final plat laid onto it, the final plat that we will see tonight. This is an image of the final plat as well. Cornerstone Drive will continue around with a small cul-de-sac at the end serving the final lots. These final plats are being presented to the Planning and Zoning Board once construction is near. The Planning and Zoning Board reviews it as the final plat for recommendation to Town Council. This final plat can actually not go before Town Council until all of the required elements are completed and approved and inspected by the Town of Winterville staff as well. Cornerstone Section 2, Phase 3 has been reviewed by our Technical Review Committee and has received approval. Planning and Zoning Board, we are recommending that you approve this final plat as it meets all of the requirements of the town once the completed improvements are made for this subdivision. Do we have any questions?
Any questions? No questions for staff. What is the pleasure of the board regarding Cornerstone Section 2 final plat, Phase 3 final plat?
Make a motion to approve final plat.
Second. Okay, moved and properly second. All those in favor using voting sign of aye. Aye. Any opposed, use the same voting sign. Opposed. Next item, Eli Ridge Phase 5 final plat.
All right, a second final plat. This is for Eli's Ridge Phase 5. Eli's Ridge is located off of Worthington Street. This will be off of Hunter Grace Drive, which is an existing road within the subdivision. A portion of 84754 parcel number. This will be 14 new lots on a 5.51 acre site. This is an R10 zoning district. As you can see, this is Worthington Road. Right here. Eli's Ridge comes right off of Worthington Road, and you'll see right here in a second, this next phase will come off of this section of Hunter Grace Drive right here. And you can see right here, Hunter Grace Drive currently terminates right here and will continue down Hunter Grace Drive with lots on both sides of the street. This is an image of the final plat as well. There is a northern stub that will not be constructed. This is just to provide connectivity to a small parcel just to the north of it, mostly located within floodway and floodplain. We doubt it'll ever be developed, but if it ever is to be developed, this will provide access to that lot for the property owner. Yes, ma'am.
I did have a question.
Absolutely.
Go back to the previous. So are we saying that the, is it Clara?
Yes, ma'am. Clara Court right here. This will actually just be a curb that goes right across right here, and this will be green grass. Unless this back parcel is ever developed, then it has enough right of way to create a street into that parcel. Again, very unlikely due to the environmental concerns that are present on that site. But just in case, it's providing that access.
So there is no other access other than this?
Correct.
Okay.
This final plat is being presented to the Planning and Zoning Board since construction is near completion. The Planning and Zoning Board will review this final plat as a recommendation to Town Council. This final plat may not go to the town council until all required elements of the final plat are completely finalized and approved and inspected by town staff. Eli's Ridge final plat has received technical review committee approval after review. The Planning and Zoning Board, we do recommend that you approve this final plat recommendation to council based on all of the elements of the final plat meeting requirements of the town of Winterville once everything is completed and approved by town staff. If anybody has any questions? Yes,
I did have
ma'am.
another question.
Absolutely.
So I noticed in that property to the north of Clara's Court,
Yes, ma'am.
that some of it or all of it, you said is in the floodplain?
Yes, ma'am. Just north, you can see a wiggly line right here. This is actually where the 100-year floodplain starts, in that line right there.
So
Yes, ma'am.
none of the 100-year floodplain exists in this subdivision?
The closest you have, that's correct. The closest you have is kind of following the back of this lot, just towards the back. And it goes into some of the common area back here, which is non-buildable anyway, could not be used for a residential home. So none of these lots shown right here contain floodplain.
With those lots being so, well, and I don't know, maybe you can help me with the actual in real-time measurements or whatever. Are any of the lots closest to that property to the north? What was done construction-wise, I guess, to help ensure that nothing, I guess, would allow it to be in the floodplain at some point, closer to or become part of the floodplain, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So the floodplains are redrawn every so often. It's typically a long, long, long time before they're redrawn. So theoretically, as studies continue with FEMA over time, it could be that they would redraw a floodplain within this area. It's hard to determine until FEMA actually begins that process. As of right now, the way that the state kind of looks at it is if you're outside of the floodplain, then you're meeting standard. If you were inside of the floodplain, then they would have to go through our floodplain development guidelines. So you, believe it or not, could actually still legally by the state build a home within the floodplain. However, the finished floor of it has to be a certain distance above the flood elevation. But in this case, since none of the lots will contain floodplain, then they could theoretically build right on grade. A lot of times you will see them kind of going in, filling in some of the dirt, especially in this area, just due to existing soils in the area not being great for compaction. So they have brought in a lot of sand in this area.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
David, quick question.
Yes, sir.
Where does the Bill Clark lot line end in the back, in this area of stuff?
So their lot line would be, if you go right here, they've got a lot that continues to the north, right here. So this, and then, so anything to the south of this is Bill Clark. Anything to the east right here, west right here would be Bill Clark, and then right here is another property owner, small lot.
So you're saying basically the lot line of the building lots is the end of Bill Clark's land, is that correct?
In this area,
Yes.
it is.
Okay, thank you,
In this area, they have land continuing towards the creek.
thank you.
The land that's, or the lots that are up against property that's owned by another person, does that have to have a berm or some type of planting to?
It doesn't, there's not an established use on that lot yet.
Okay.
Any other question for staff regarding the Eli Ridge Phase 5 final plat? There being none, what is the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion to approve this is final plat, Stephen?
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve the final plat.
Second.
All right, moved and properly second. All those in favor, use your voting sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, using likewise sign. None opposed. Item 3, Southbrook Plan Unit Development, PU rezoning.
And I'm gonna try to be fairly clear on this, but it's definitely confusing. So at any time, just stop me.
Did you have that paperwork?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Tonight we have Southbrook Plan Unit Development Amendment to a rezoning. Again, if you have any questions on this, just stop me. Happy to assist. The applicant for this is Southbrook NC LLC. Scott Moore is the principal. He is with us tonight as well. This is off of Church Street Extension and Laurie Ellis Road. It's a 245.43 acre site. Many of you may be aware of this site for previous board involvement. Some of the newer members, this may be a newer site and concept for you. A planned unit development is an interesting concept in that you're looking at a piece of land and generally clumping residential and different uses in order to have open space, in this case for environmental reasons. There's a site that has some environmental concerns, and so a PUD was a great way to achieve the density that you would see on a certain piece of land by creating smaller lots in pockets of area in which you could create that density, but to have the same overall density on the entire site. This was approved, the conditional zoning district, the PUD, which was an R6 planned unit development and multifamily residential planned unit development conditional district at the January 2023 regular council meeting. A planned unit development, another important aspect of it is not only is it a zoning district, but it is also a use as well. And we will get into a little bit of that as we go along. The proposed change tonight is for the January 2023 planned unit development zoning district. Again, we will discuss tonight. A PUD is, again, a use and a zoning. Think of each PUD as a customized zoning district that specifically identifies the location of buildings, uses, architectural design, and open space in a response to environmentally sensitive sites. PUDs allow alternative designs for a community in exchange for creative development. A PUD's design is site-specific due to the site's environmental features, as well as the certain components of the PUD are specific just to that PUD through its development as well. A PUD, again, permits clustered development in exchange for open space on a site. Again, this is to help protect environmentally sensitive areas such as streams, riparian buffers, ponds, wetlands, things like that. Our zoning ordinance states that in reviewing a PUD rezoning, these are the questions that the board should ask of themselves. The application of planned unit development requirements to the property will produce a development of equal or higher quality than otherwise required by the strict application of the zoning district. That the application of the planned unit development requirements to the property will encourage innovative arrangements of buildings, open space, to provide effective, attractive, flexible, and environmentally sensitive design. That the application of the PUD requirements to the property will produce a development functioning as a cohesive and unified project, and that the application of the PUD requirements to the property will not substantially injure, damage the use, value, or enjoyment of surrounding properties, nor hinder or prevent the development of the surrounding properties in accordance with the plans of the town of Winterville. Again, another a big aspect of this PUD is to protect environmentally sensitive areas such as floodplains, wetlands, stormwater concerns, and streams. The timeline of this existing PUD: the applicant voluntarily held 2 community meetings in October of 2022 for public input. The Planning and Zoning Board unanimously recommended approval of the existing PUD development in November of 2022. Council approved the PUD in January 2023. A preliminary plat for Phase 1, Tract A and B, were approved March of this year. And a preliminary plat for the remainder of this tract is currently under review, and you will actually see that later on tonight. We have placed notification on this site as well as mailed notification to adjoining property owners and those within 100 foot. We have received only 1 notice from the mailings and the signs. Got a phone call from a resident, an adjacent resident, stating that they are concerned with the development on this land and development in and around the gas pipes on this property. This is a image of the location of Winterville that we're discussing. This is Lori Ellis Road to the north, and this is Church Street Extension. Both would have direct access into this subdivision. This is highlighting the site that we're discussing tonight in blue. This is an aerial of the property. And as you can see with the white, this is the gas pipe that the caller was referring to. This is an image of the rezoning map and concept map just laid on top of the site. This is showing the interconnectivity proposed on that map. Here I'm showing single-family residential. Single-family attached residential is proposed within this area and was approved within the first submission of this rezoning. This rezoning is requesting to add single-family attached in this location as well. So it would actually not change the number of single-family attached products. It would actually just shift it very slightly to the south, with a removal of an area right here that would have single-family attached. So again, they are not proposing the change of the number of single-family attached units, just slightly changing the location of the single-family attached units. Current zoning district, this is a PUD, R6 and multifamily residential conditional district. The surrounding properties are dominated by single-family detached zoning, mostly R10 to R15 range within the properties surrounding. Existing land use, again, mostly single-family residential or vacant or agricultural land, especially along the eastern portion of it and the southern portion. Future land use plan within this area, all of the yellow is suburban residential. This green is rural residential, and then you have some urban residential right here as well, and then institutional too. All of the land that we are looking at tonight is projected to be suburban residential within our future land use plan. Suburban residential is primarily larger lot, single-family detached residential, generally 2 to 3 dwelling units per acre. Again, larger lots with front and side loaded garages. Smaller lots can be used if the minimum standard for open space and amenities are exceeded. The applicant, again, this is a PUD, so you're trying to achieve roughly the same amount of density by pocketing residential. They are proposing 2.49 units per acre, so it's within the 2 to 3 units per acre recommended within suburban residential. Again, larger lots, low-density single-family residential is the character area, general character area for suburban residential. 1 to 3 acres per lot is what this is showing. And then typically you will see a mixture of R20 to R12.5, R10 or R8 if open space and amenities are provided. Again, significant open space is being provided in this proposal due to it being a PUD proposal. Some of our land use goals are to utilize the future land use plan when considering land use decisions. We are now going to go into the proposed changes to the existing PUD. So again, there is an existing ordinance, an existing PUD. They are proposing some changes to that. One of the changes that they are proposing is the minimum home size change. Currently, the PUD that was submitted and approved requires that single-family detached homes have a minimum of 1,800 square foot of heated space. They are proposing a change to allow 1,500 square foot of heated space on single-story homes and 1,600 square feet of heated space on two-story homes. They also had a requirement on single-family attached units. That single-family attached units would be a minimum of 1,600 square foot of heated space. They are requesting an amendment to allow 1,400 square foot of heated space as the minimum. So again, just to cover this, going from 1,800 square foot to 1,600 and 1,500 square foot for single family detached. Single family attached from 1,600 to 1,400. They are also proposing, as discussed previously, a change in the location of single family attached. The existing PUD and zoning document shows this yellow area being the single family attached. The applicant, or within the PUD document, it says staff may approve changes in location as long as the density is less dense at the product type. In this case, they are proposing a more intense product type in this area, but not a change in the number of units overall, just in the location.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So the previous map was showing just this area right here being proposed as single family attached, so duplexes essentially. They are requesting to add this area right here for single family attached as well. Now, they are not requesting to change the number of single family attached, just the location. So within the existing ordinance, they are allowed up to 154 single family attached units or townhomes. They will still have up to 154 units. They cannot go beyond that within this request. However, they are asking to shift some of the units in this southern area. Does that, okay.
So there will be less up in the original in order to move some down?
That's correct, yes, sir. Yeah, instead of achieving 154 just in this area, as they were designing it, they had a few things that were kind of in the way, and I think they're looking at doing a stormwater retention area there, and we're wanting to shift it here for logistics. So, yes, sir, just a shift in the location of the units.
Is it closer? My question, I guess, would be, so previously, it was not as close to the next size up, if you will, or the single family, but now it's gonna be closer, correct? If you see what I'm asking?
Yeah, I absolutely see what you're asking. I would say that's probably a fair belief. Right here in this green area is a Neuse River riparian buffer, and it was showing a separation between single-family attached units. There was this buffer and then single-family detached units. So you are correct that it is going past that riparian buffer and will be blended a little bit more with single-family detached.
It seemed like a good barrier there from the different kinds of housing. But maybe we'll hear more about that later.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain what the Neuse buffer is?
Yeah, absolutely. So within North Carolina, there are numerous rivers that eventually go to the ocean that have buffer protection. In this case, every single drop within Winterville of rain that'll fall, if it doesn't get absorbed here, will eventually end up in the Neuse River and then flow out to the ocean. The riparian buffer is a state buffer or protection that protects from the top of the bank of the ditch 50 foot back, so that you are not impacting that area between that 50 foot in the ditch, so that once rainwater is dropped and there's vegetation that can catch in, there will not be a ton of direct discharge into the Neuse River. A lot of it too is to help capture different chemicals, nitrogen, stuff like that, so that you don't have algae blooms, things like that. But essentially, that's what the Neuse River, or what a riparian buffer is, the purpose of it is.
And nobody can build on it? It's dedicated land.
Well, there's a long ordinance of things that you can do and can't do in there. There are things that you can 100% do, for instance, a fence. They allow you to place a fence in there as long as you're not digging vegetation out, things like that. You may be able to do a single-family residential home if you have no other options, but you do have to do a direct request to the state for that. So there's actually a table of uses that you can do, uses that you can do if you're kind of careful and don't touch vegetation and things like that, uses that you can do if you request the state through an application to do that use, and then pretty much everything else you can't do. So for the most part, it is a area of vegetation that cannot be touched greatly, other than, like I said, very, very low intense projects.
And PUD has no design of using that, that's.
I have not seen any proposal within any riparian buffer.
Now, for the sake of what this board has before and is considering, what exactly are we, I guess, making a recommendation to town council to approve or not approve?
So tonight will just be the rezoning aspect of it. So the first requested change is the home size. The second requested change is the location of single-family attached. The third request is they are requesting a change in city block sizes. So a block is an area of land separate or encompassed by streets, is how a block is defined. We currently allow block sizes between 400 foot and 1,200 foot. The applicant is requesting a block closer to around 1,400 foot, which we do not allow within the zoning ordinance. The applicant is also requesting that instead of using a street to break up the block, to use a sidewalk to break up the block. This is the block that we are actually referring to that is outside of the maximum size. This is the sidewalk that they are proposing to break up the block, while staff is recommending that we retain our block size minimums and that they'll have to redesign this block.
How much does it exceed the 1,200?
So it's closer to 1,400. It's about 13. Yeah.
You said there was only one person that called in. Are there anyone in the audience from the notice that would like to speak or share?
We will open up a public hearing. Yes, sir. So the fourth change that they are proposing is flexibility for ongoing changes. The applicant wishes for town council to allow town staff to approve deviations or changes to construction drawings, review without revisions to the zoning ordinance, Southbrook Planned Unit Development Ordinance, which we are reviewing tonight, or the preliminary plat. So again, requests to staff for those changes. Sorry, I'm still on these proposed changes for flexibility, ongoing changes. So they're requesting that staff have the ability to approve changes in lot widths, but not the number of lots, the addition or modification of open space areas, but not the removal of open space, and other deviations that are within the spirit or intent of Southbrook PUD or preliminary plat. Summary of changes: they are requesting an extension of multi-family residential zoned area, again, just slightly to the south. They are requesting the change in heated square footage size of the homes. They are requesting a change in the block size or block length, and requesting flexibility in staff processes. Staff's review of this, the extension of multifamily residentially zoned area. Staff does not have a concern with the proposed multifamily map change, as it does not change the amount of single family attached, just the location. The change in heated square foot of homes, Winterville's ordinances do not address or speak to that, so we will hand it over to Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustment if they believe that the proposed home changes are appropriate. Staff does recommend the denial of this proposal in total due to the block size proposal. Our ordinance currently requires up to 1,200 feet in block length. We are requesting that Planning and Zoning and Council deny a larger block. The location of the block is not being affected by environmental features requiring a larger block in this area. Smaller blocks help with connectivity, accessibility, walkability, slower traffic, and safety. Winterville's comprehensive plan actually suggests that the town start to consider 800-foot blocks as a maximum within our next and future subdivision ordinance changes. So I do not think that going for a longer block would be the right direction for the town. The subdivision, or the future land use plan and comprehensive land use plan, even strives to eventually have blocks as small as 250 to 400, stating that that's excellent connectivity and walkability for cities. So as you can see, staff is recommending the denial of this rezoning proposal due to the block sizes. Staff is also recommending denial of the proposed amendment due to the request for flexibility and deviations. We feel like this subdivision should meet the same standards and steps as every other subdivision that comes through town. Slight deviations in lot sizes for a preliminary plat or construction drawings or final plat are going to be expected. We don't expect it to be. If it says 55-foot lot front and it's a 56, we expect small deviations in that. Open area per the subdivision ordinance should be reviewed by town council rather than staff. And other minor deviations that are within the spirit and intent of the PUD, that's a little too ambiguous for staff's comfort. We feel that spirit and intent of a PUD should be reviewed and determined by town council rather than the planning department. So staff is recommending denial of the proposed rezoning amendments as they do not produce equal or higher quality of a development due to the block lengths exceeding our standard, due to the blocks request to be defined with a walkway rather than streets, and staff's ability to approve flexibility and deviation from the final plat. This should be a decision for town council and places staff in a very unique situation. Again, the rezoning process tonight, you guys are reviewing it as a recommendation to town council. We will ultimately schedule a public hearing and hold a public hearing on this proposal. To review a PUD, these are the 4 questions that Planning and Zoning Board and Town Council should consider. Again, is the application of the PUD's requirements to the property, will it produce a development of higher or equal quality than otherwise required by the strict application of district regulations? Will the application of the PUD requirements to the property encourage innovation of buildings and open space to provide effective, attractive, flexible, and environmentally sensitive design? Will the application of the PUD requirements to the property produce a development functioning as a cohesive and unified project? Will the application of the PUD requirements to the property not injure or damage the uses, values, or enjoyment of surrounding properties, nor hinder or prevent the development of surrounding properties in accordance with the adopted plans and policies of the town? So we do have a public hearing on this matter, but I also have the applicant here with a brief presentation as well.
So before we get the applicant up there, are there any questions for staff that remains from the board?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm confused as to what we're being asked to consider. Is this 1 item or 5 items? Because I see it,
This is one item, so it's a rezoning with conditional uses attached to it is probably the best way to say it. So it's as if somebody said, I want an R10 zoning district with these 3 elements attached to it. So it's one vote. It's for the approval or denial of the proposed rezoning.
but there are multiple items in there. that
Correct.
The developer may want input from this board on. For example, the heated area. There's 2 different considerations of design where the heated areas design has to be changed. The block, I understand what you're saying about the blocks, but there's 2 other items, the amendment to the attached zoning locations and also the deviations, which is what you referred to. So there may be an item in there that they may want input on, but you're lumping it in one consideration, and I'm not sure that's fair to the developer.
It's an all or nothing, right?
Yeah, this was their request.
Okay, it's their request.
But you can certainly give your feedback to any and all aspects of their request.
We'll do it after the public hearing.
Okay. If anybody has any questions for staff? Thank you.
Now, will you share your presentation with the board? Start by stating your name and who you represent.
I will. Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chairman of the Planning Board, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Scott Moore. I am the applicant and project manager for the Southbrook NC LLC. Before I get into the proposed revisions, I want to provide this board with some additional background information regarding the January 9th, 2023 HUD approval. Now, I think as Stephen alluded to, as part of this process, we endeavored to adhere to what's known as the conservation subdivision design elements, which were located in the Winterville Comprehensive Plan. Those elements encourage the clustering of homes with a heavy emphasis on open space preservation, as well as enhanced open space design to serve the community. As discussed during the initial review process, the first time that we came through, we set out to just do that, carefully designing around the wetland areas, while also providing open spaces to serve as points of interest and destination to our residents. Now, it should be noted that as it applies to our site, the ordinance requires that we provide 16.86 total acres of open space, which is just under 7% of the site. And again, that's what the required amount is. For our approvals, we're offering 81.43 acres, which is 33.2% of the site, of which 48.63 acres are usable. That's just under 20% of our site. So if you're keeping tabs with these numbers, that's 4.8 times more than the total required in open space and 3.8 times more than the required usable open space total. Now, that's an important element as it defines and really differentiates us from other communities that you typically see. And when I was before you during the PUD process, I shared examples of how we achieved the creation of usable open space areas in our other communities, such as this example I provided. This slide that contains pictures of our Sunset Bluffs community in Fuquay, Varina. Now, since our PUD approval in January of 23, we've been working really on designing the entire site. When we split the community into two primary phases for approval purposes. On March 11th, 2024, we received the preliminary plat approval for phase 1 of the areas that are shown in bold. We recently concluded our construction plan review for this phase, with upcoming approvals being formally issued in October, November of this year, pending permit issuance from the state. Now, once the permits and formal approval have been issued, we plan to start construction on this phase. Now, we have also been working with town staff on seeking this preliminary plat approval for really what is known as the remainder of the property, which is being presented before you this evening. In designing this site, we have discovered some unique site challenges, which will actually present some opportunities, and we are addressing those matters through this PUD revision, which is before you this evening. So, when we set out initially, when we presented this PUD, we really had several goals that we wanted to achieve through the site design of planning this community. One is being offered. We wanted to offer multiple building types within one community in an effort to appeal to all buyers, which are really all walks of life, while adhering to the strict architectural requirements of the PUD. We wanted to establish cluster development throughout the community for single-family detached homes and single-family attached homes. This creates pods of development and differentiates spaces within the community. 3, we wanted to design the site with an emphasis on building a walkable community by promoting pedestrian activity, and establish open space areas and amenities that are within walking distance, and have them serve as points of interest and destinations for all of our residents. And 4, we wanted to build a model community that really served as an example for future growth in this area by preserving and enhancing as much open space as possible. So, as for tonight, our goal remains steadfast in delivering a community that adheres to these goals, which has been established since the initial approval. In an effort to do just that, we're presenting a few of these changes that will have an impact on our preliminary PUD proposal, which is the next item on the agenda. So within your packet, and you'll also see on the screen, I've highlighted these areas in yellow, which indicate the items that we were requesting a PUD revision, and I'll cover all of those specifically with you. For the first change, we are providing that zoning map revision regarding our single-family attached areas. The town has reached out to us about obtaining 6 acres in the area next to the Church Street extension where that red X is located. We are happy to provide that, and as a result, we are locating that area of single-family attached below that Neuse River Basin, which one, keeps it internal to the community while continuing to cluster with other single-family attached homes. It will not have any impact on the adjacent communities as it will still be buffered by the stream. And as he had indicated, that's about 100 feet of buffer total between our development and the next development. So, and it will not, and it will also remove any visibility of single-family attached from what was approved at Church Street as shown on that area to the left. As for the second revision, one of the clear directions that we've received from prospective builders is the request to provide some additional design flexibility within the product type. Now, in all cases, we need to provide a 200 square foot reduction in the 2-story homes, 300 square foot reduction in the ranch style homes, and a 200 square foot reduction in the single family attached. These revisions are not indicative of all the homes that will be built, as we are continuing to require a wide range of home styles and square footages. This modification is needed to offer the flexibility and efficiency for a greater range of home product. Also, these changes are not something that will be visible from the exterior of the home, and no changes are being made to our architectural requirements, as all homes will strictly adhere to the PUD approval. The most important note here is that this change will help meet one of our goals in providing a product that will make our community available to another subset of buyers, thus making it available to as many buyers as possible. The next revision applies to block lengths and the addition of what's known as a mid-block pedestrian access to establish within our community. This is something that is very specific to our community and within certain area of our plan. So to answer the question, we have 3 block lengths, all shown in the areas that are colored on the slide, that they do exceed that 1,200 linear foot ordinance requirement. They measure 1325, 1346, and 1328 respectively. So all of them are within 150 feet of the contemplated, or I'm sorry, within that 1,200, they're all within 150 feet of the 1,200 foot ordinance requirement. The PUD zoning map approval, which is shown at the bottom of this slide, already contemplated longer block lengths due to the natural gas line and the wetlands in certain areas of the site, but we did not specifically note that block length extensions were needed in the language of the PUD. And frankly, at the PUD stage, we don't have all the exact locations of all the constraints which are vetted out during the preliminary plat stage. And we're not aware that this would be an issue at the preliminary plat review. So normally, we would request that for the block length extensions alone, just asking for the additional block length extensions. However, this is one of those unique opportunities to not only break up blocks or the block lengths, but to also create a pedestrian-only crossing area. So what this slide shows is a 30-foot open space area, so not just a sidewalk, but a whole open space area that has a pedestrian path that is shown in green, which connects from the northern part of Middle Crest Drive, runs down past Trailside Lane, and then connects to a section of walkways that will lead to other parts of our community. So, why is this important to us? Well, let's look at 2 things. One of the ways that we promote a walkable and not vehicular-driven community is to provide walking trails that are interwoven within the design of the community. In this particular case, we are incorporating the mid-block pedestrian trail to not only break up those links, but also promote safety by providing a clear and visible area where pedestrian activity will take place. In addition, we are strategically placing this connection in order to lead residents to one of our larger open space areas, which we are all envisioning a trail system that connects to other community streets and also to our, I'll show it here, our swim club facility located there. The Winterville Comprehensive Land Use Plan speaks of connectivity benefits, of which I think this mid-block pedestrian alternative covers. Looking at the blue box, which again comes from the land use plan, points out to make points of interest closer, to walk to school, and I put in quotation marks, in other areas with an emphasis on physical health improvement opportunities, improve access to Greenway, which we are tying into our path system, and also a roadway in this area would not improve emergency response times, which is one of the items here. However, a clearly marked pedestrian connection instead of just another street would bring awareness to drivers that this is a special area where people cross the street, so vehicles will be more apt to slow down, which is a great safety benefit of our community. Outside of the open space and green space benefit, this is going to eliminate another 300 feet of roadway the town will not have to maintain. It will eliminate some of the expensive upkeep that staff is referencing in their report. So it will provide less impervious surface that we have to treat with our water quality basins, and which will be maintained and cared for by the HOA. So I see immense and multiple benefits for this pedestrian crossing in this area. We have also provided this with great success in our other communities across the state. This is an example of one of those. This is the Villages at Skybrook North, which is in Concord, North Carolina, a place that my family called home for over 15 years. With all of the open space areas, the pedestrian area outlined in red is probably the most used by the community residents, as it provides another alternative route for walking. It also does a great job of breaking up blocks or block links with open space areas. It slows traffic because residents know that these are high pedestrian areas. Also, when you drive through the community, and this applies to the vision and the aesthetics, green spaces visually look so much better than another intersection within the community. And they do a great job, again, of breaking up long runs of homes. So of everything that I just covered, what I'm most excited about for our community is that this will not only provide for the benefits of what was just shown on that slide, and then in that case, but this is going to lead to larger open space area, again, with the trail system that leads to one of our destinations, again, which is that swim club area. If the mid-block pedestrian access is granted to us, it will break up the blocks, making them within range, except for a portion of Middle Crest, which is that area that's shown in blue, which is fully surrounded by wetlands. And after discussing that particular area with staff, we all agree that what is provided in that one area is the best possible design, specifically, again, for that area. So, because of the pedestrian crossing in these high visibility areas, I no doubt will create a higher level of awareness for pedestrian activity, which will promote slower speeds and promote traffic calming. And I don't think that there is a better method for encouraging walking or interconnectivity than none other than a pedestrian trail. Finally, if approved for our PUD, this will not amend the definition of block length, as this is simply a request for an alternative application, which will only apply to one location in the Southbrook PUD specifically. This does not change the ordinance requirements for any other community. This is very site-specific and will only be permitted by the town board for this plan only. So I hope in all of that information, this help explains the reason why we're asking for a mid-block pedestrian connection. All right. The last PUD revision relates to our approval processes. I know this looks like a lot of revisions. but it's really just a clarification of what is permitted already with the PUD revision process. To be clear, there's only one revision in this language that we're requesting for administrative design flexibility. And that starts with the area where it says the developer can establish or modify. And this goes on to say lot width revisions for all single-family detached lots, provided that the lot widths adhere to Appendix 2 dimensional standards chart, and that the overall density will not exceed 612 lots, the 458-foot single-family detached lots. All right, let me break down what this means. All right, the approved PUD allows for the maximum number of units proposed, again, 612 residential units. It's a maximum of 154 single-family attached, 458 detached, on the whole 245 acres. We can develop all of those lots in accordance with the approved chart that is shown. Specifically, this allows for all of the single-family detached lots to be a minimum of 50 feet in width. So when you received your preliminary plat, the design and the layout tonight, this phase 2 matches up with our PUD approvals, but we provided 55 feet, all of these lots are 55 feet in width for all sections in phase 2. Our goal throughout this entire thing is to have different sections of lots ranging from 50 feet in width to 60 feet in width. So we just want to be able to take a section of lots, such as the example that is shown in red, be able to revise them to 50 or 60s, and have our construction drawings reflect those changes. Remember, no matter how we revise our lots, we cannot exceed the 458 single-family lots that were approved in the PUD. We also have to work with the same exact street networks to provide lots where the preliminary plat approves those lots. So we wrote other sections regarding open space modifications in the event that if we lose a lot, due to adjusting those lot lines, it creates perhaps maybe a sliver of open space. The planning director or the public works director can approve that. The construction drawing revision in this case is made as if we encounter something in the field that we have to provide a minor shift in the road or a lot, we can make that change administratively. We cannot revise anything else outside of the approval of our preliminary plat. So I hope that section clears it up, and I'll take questions in a minute. But as far as minor changes are concerned, I can provide a cover page to the construction drawings that shows the entire community. We can bubble or circle that out with those minor changes so that the staff can review them in scope with the entire community-wide. And the reason that we're doing this is that in other municipalities, we do what's called a RTAP, and that's a revision to an approved plan in those other municipalities. It incorporates these types of changes all the time. So having me revise a preliminary plat when I'm changing 50-foot wide lots to 60-foot wide lots, again, in those same areas that have been approved, and taking that before the town boards each and every time, that's going to result in a lot of unnecessary and extensive workload for staff. So that's one of the reasons why we're asking for it. At the end of the day, if it's not a deviation that's specifically listed, we're going to end up coming back before you guys and to the town board. So I have the utmost confidence in staff that they can address these minor changes. They're in the construction plan review process. And again, I'm not envisioning that we're going to make any other changes outside of shifting those lot widths in certain sections as shown in the example. So those are the primary revisions that are being shown. And also for the process itself, I'm happy for us to break out each one of those revisions and talk about it and have you vote on them individually. We just put all this together in one proposal because we were presenting it to you all in one night. So I just want to be clear on that aspect as well. So happy to thanks for all the time in doing this. I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Any question for board for Mr. Moore?
Yes, sir.
I do have a question pertaining to the section that's identified as Phase 2A, where you changed it to a single street dead ending into a cul-de-sac. Is there any reason why it couldn't maintain that connectivity with the other street as it did before?
So that's definitely something I was going to get into in terms of the preliminary plat revision. And if you would, I'll explain all of that in great detail because that's my only long explanation in the next presentation.
Okay, and then my other question would be for staff. Pertaining to the block length, is that, in the ordinance, is that speaking to pedestrian block length or vehicle block length? Does it specify?
The block length, the block is defined as streets. So it's referring to a street defining the block. Does that answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for the developer?
So I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So you mentioned, what I heard you say was you came down on the size of the square footage,
Yes.
and because of, you wanted a wider range. And then I heard you say that it was to allow more people, or more different groups of, more people to be able to purchase, I suppose. What was the thinking when you first started? I mean, when you first presented it, I mean, what's the difference now?
Direct builder input, direct market input specifically. You know, when we start off with these things, you know, and we've done several PUDs, a lot of the same information is transferred over to another PUD. And we felt like in that case, 1,800 feet was good, but when we started breaking down and looking at it, it's like, well, actually, again, we're trying to capture a bigger share and to allow more people into the community. Reducing that and making maybe one or two other homes available is something that spoke to us, and something that builders wanted to see, something that actually I think would be good for the town and what we want to see as well.
Mr. Moore, I have a question with regard also to the square footage. We're dealing with single-family detached and single-family attached. If it was changed to the requested square footage, I would see nothing in the PUD ordinance that would stop you from building them all that size. I would not support that at all. I mean, if we approve the smaller size square footage, there's nothing to stop you from building them all smaller size. And that, to me, is defeating the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish in having a very nice development. So I oppose the two requested square footage diminution.
Okay, let me answer several aspects of that. So in terms of being a nice development, if we require the same architectural guidelines and apply them to all the same homes, and really those changes are more interior based than anything. From the exterior, you're not going to really see that difference driving in through the community. You also trusted me the first time, even with having 1,800 square feet, that we're going to provide a multitude of homes. That's what we're setting out to do anyways. Our planned lineup is not 2 to 3 homes. Our planned lineups are going to be much larger than that. That's what our vision for all of this is. And that's really when I came in the first time, I showed you guys and I spent a lot more time talking about what we have done in other communities. In this aspect, I just talked about the revisions. Perhaps I should have said, let me show you more of what we did with the communities. But varying these elevations, varying the homes, I mean, when you really look through what the building and aesthetics are, you know, they're still not the same elevation, not to be built side by side across the street, diagonally from one another. All of that gets into different product, different houses, and having just a big variety throughout the streetscape. That's still our goal. None of the changes that we're making is going to revise that at all. So you're right. It's a trust in us that we're going to continue to provide that, but we've already brought this to you guys. We've already said, when the ordinance doesn't say I have to do this, this is a restriction that I want to add to this. So hence, that's why I'm still saying we're not changing the, now I think I would be concerned if you said, hey, you're striking the same elevation not to be allowed. That sounds more like if that was the case, I'm trying to build the same house side by side and continue that down the road. And that's not at all what we want to do. We want to have a variation. We want to have ranches, we want to have 2 stories, and we want to have them mixed in all together so that it doesn't look like the same thing on every street when you're driving down. Hence also why I'm asking for 50-foot wide lots and 60-foot wide lots. We'll have different products on those and different phases throughout the community, so we have different appearances as when you make through and drive through the community and look at it. So obviously I want to do something that's going to be successful, something that's going to be different and change, and that's why we have brought this for you. So I hope that helps.
So, my thoughts or question would be, will the reduction in size of these homes make the homes more affordable? I know you said that it would be able to attract more home buyers. So reduction in the size of the homes, would that mean that the cost would also decrease?
There's not a direct correlation, but that's what we're shooting for. We're shooting for something, like I say, if we want to bring in, obviously we're lowering the square footage, we want to bring someone who needs this size home, and yes, the likelihood is the pricing will be a little bit lower so they can be included into the community. That's what we're also shooting for. I'm a little leery of always talking about pricing because the markets adjust all the time. And the price of what one house can be today can change vastly of what it can be in 3 years. That's why I don't really want to commit to any price points, because all of that could change, and then I would be stuck at, you have to build at this dollar sign, and we're just going to build at the heated square footage and to the architectural requirements that we're providing. Hope that makes sense.
Okay, and one last question. Were the other home builders in this area, the sizes of the homes that they were building, was that taken into consideration?
All of it was, and we don't even have a builder yet. So what's taken into consideration is we're receiving direct feedback from the pool of builders that we're looking at. And given how this specific cluster development is laid out, they are offering up to us, if we're going to create kind of a vast product line, this is where we want the minimum to be. But I see also that we're going to continue to have large homes in this community too. That's what we have built since I've been with the company for over 20 years. I see a continuation of that.
Before we take public comment, any other questions for the developer, Mr. Moore? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This time, if there's those who would like to offer a public comment, if you will come to the podium, state your name, your address for the board, and we'll give you 2 minutes to 3 minutes, I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Dean Fralick. I live at 2842 Mockingbird Lane in Mellon Downs, which is directly beside this area. And 3 minutes is not going to be long enough, honestly, to critique this whole situation. The direct correlation that was alluded to, price point, is directly what happened. They spoke to builders. Builders said we can't sell a whole bunch, or we can't sell a ton of 1,800 square foot homes. We need to reduce the price point. It's not about the square footage, it's just the price point. They want to come in, make a ton of money, can't do it now, and they want to reduce that and put smaller homes there. The original stuff that they have in Fuquay Arena and Concord is $500,000 and $600,000 houses. That's not what's going to sell in this area. Now they know that. But my other problem is, if we go back to Eli Ridge, young lady here said the floodplain. We can take notes from Greenville. When Floyd came through, leveled all those houses, the floodplain has changed because there is not as much material in the way of the river. That is all swampland, that is all wetlands. You bring in dirt and sand to build these houses, it's coming into my neighborhood. I can show you video, photos. Last September we had that small storm, not even a true hurricane. Everybody on my block almost had water in their homes. That is going to come right back to us because they're going to raise the level of the land. That water does not travel through there like it should, and that's going to cause us problems, and they're not going to take responsibility for that. I don't have flood insurance because it's not required right now, but I'm going to end up having to get it if this happens. The other problem is we're talking about 600 homes. You're talking 1,200 people. You're talking about, let's say, 800 cars to go to 3 different 2-lane roads. Old Tar Road is gonna be fixed eventually. They've been under construction for 8 years now. You can't get out to Highway 11 right now off of Lori Ellis because of the traffic that's already existent. You're adding to Church Street. You're gonna push everybody towards Reedy Branch. You can't get down Church Street to the other side because of school. And now they just approved another neighborhood to go in right there in the open field beside, what is that, one Main? So we're adding even more homes in this area. It's gotta stop. We have to get the infrastructure, we have to get the stormwater under control before we can do this. Everybody knows Mark Smith. I jokingly tell him he's got Lake Smith every time it rains in our area. His whole front yard is nothing but a lake. That whole area does the same thing.
30 seconds.
If we keep doing this, if we keep building houses in that area, that's what's gonna continue to happen. It's gonna flood. Brookfield 3 just is finishing up right now. You're just dumping too many people in one area and the infrastructure's not ready for it. Hope you guys take that into consideration. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Irene Leahy. I live at Holly Grove, right behind this development that wants to go in. Everything he just said, I totally agree. My concern is the traffic. You're talking at least 1,200 more cars. Where are they going? Where are the kids gonna go to school? What about all the trees? I mean, you guys are building. It's kind of ridiculous. If I wanted a big city, I would have moved to Greenville. I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. I just don't see what the point is. It's all wetlands, percentage of wetland. So, like, what's the answer? Just gonna keep building? That's really all I have to say. I mean, I hope you have enough firemen and EMS and everything to cover another 600 houses, because where's that money coming from? Taxes are gonna go up again? Assessments are gonna go up? You guys really need to think before you approve.
Anyone else?
The only thing I'm worried
State your
about
name
are
and your address. State your name and address.
my name is Kaiden. I don't know my address. But I'm worried about the trees. Because if we build, what about the trees? Because if you chop down the trees, we won't be able to grow new ones because there will be no space for them. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other comments? If there's not, discussion of the board with regard to item 3, the South Brook Plain Unit flood rezoning.
Well, one of the comments I've got is, some of the items he talked about, I kind of agree on, but then there are others that I don't agree on, and so I wish he'd have broke it out a little bit more. It would have given me maybe a little more of an opportunity to show a little bit more in favor of some of the items to him, but with it bundled as a single package, I just can't see approving this myself, but we'll go from there.
Others?
I'd just like to say, I mean, I really appreciate the PUD. I mean, I appreciate what they're trying to do, and I think we, as Winterville, it's a growing place, and we want I mean, I believe that I want growth. I mean, and tax dollars are gonna come from new, new building, new houses. And I am concerned with the home size from the, I think from the very beginning, it did concern me that it was, one size when it was started, and then it came down. That does concern me, because I believe initially, I think you would know your market, in my sense. I mean, and for some reason, that's a pretty big jump down in size, and that does concern me. The block issue is, I mean, I hear what Mr. Moore is saying on that. I could be okay with that, but I'm just concerned with that size, and I think our Winterville has to grow, and we have to address the stormwater issue. We depend on our town staff to deal with that problem when we get new houses. That must be taken care of. I may have something else to say in a minute. Somebody else go ahead.
Along with what Board Member Weldon had said, if it was broken out, there are a couple of parts of it that I can get behind you on, but then others not so much, and I don't know where I'd fall with the other board members in terms of the breakdown. In terms of the block length, I appreciate your attempt to break it up for pedestrian, or that it's that long for pedestrians. For breaking up the block length, there might be another compromise that you can do for that to figure out some other way. If the issue is the vehicle traffic, is there a way to stop the vehicle traffic at a certain point to consider that a break in the block length? Probably where you have your pedestrian cut through. If that, I don't know if a raised, almost like a raised intersection, if that would qualify as breaking up the block, or if you have to have a curb cut in another street, if that's what does that. In terms of the requests to have staff be able to approve things without coming back to a board, I understand staff's feeling on that. There are some things that, yes, you can, that depending on how that's worded, you might be able to get away with that, but staff will always feel comfortable with it coming before a commission for it to be reviewed, so.
I spoke earlier about the square footage reduction, that I oppose that. However, I will speak to the block length. My wife and I moved to eastern North Carolina 26 years ago, and we moved into a subdivision in Greenville that had block lengths, I believe, beyond the 1,400 foot length, and there was a pedestrian way in the middle. It was in a Willow Run subdivision, and the pedestrian way in the center worked fine. It divided it up nice. I have no problem now, thinking back with where I lived and what I saw, supporting his block length. I do not support the reduction in the two families sizes reduction, the multiple and single family. I oppose that. As far as the review by staff, I don't know. They have the discretion to do a good share of that now. I don't see that there's a big difference here. I think that that I could go along with also. So I agree with what Mike started us out with. If this was a multiple package, I could see us supporting many of these. I could support many, but I can't support them all. And therefore, if it's a one up and down, I have to say that I would not support it.
Are there other comments?
Yeah, the lot frontage, you said 55 feet, it has not changed, correct? It does not change with the square footage of the
I'm sorry, say that
So
again.
the lot size, or the.
Yes, sir.
Does not change. You know, you were saying 55, but, and I can see some leeway in that for 50 to 60. I'm okay with that. But, so that is the same regardless of the square footage of the minimum square footage?
Yes, the minimum lot width is already established
So-
by 50 foot, so even right now, he could have 50-foot wide lot widths.
But even with a larger house size? Or it doesn't matter the house size? 1,400 or 1,800 minimum?
Correct, yeah, just how you orient the house with
Right.
setbacks and stuff like
And I
that.
do appreciate, I gotta say, I appreciate the different styles, and I absolutely, because we have too many cookie cutter, same. Sometimes in these places, it looks like Los Angeles, California, when you've seen that. And I guess there's nothing you can do about this, but I really wish the quality, I don't know how you just do the best you can with the quality of the builders and make sure the quality of the home is, should be what it should be. And we have had instances, many, I will say, I have relatives that live in homes that have been built 1,500 square feet around here that they're having to replace the plumbing after 2 years. So I don't know the answer to that, but I just had to throw that in. But I think I do appreciate what you're trying to do. I really like that with the different kind of houses you got coming in. I'm sort of with our vice chairman here, Mr. Gillian. I tend to agree with him.
I'm sorry to cut you
Yeah, I'm
off. One consideration that we can't break up his proposal into separate sections. It has to be a vote overall. However, if prior to the vote overall, you wish to, as a board, review each of those individual items, then it would at least provide the applicant information going towards planning and zoning, or towards council if there is an aspect of his request that he would like to remove in going towards council, if that makes sense.
With all due respect, looking at the clock here now, our time, just to be respectful of that, the applicant made his application as is.
Yes, sir.
And so if there is amendments to this, my recommendation would be that they would come back with individual rezoning, resubmissions versus this board taking action that is not before us.
Right.
Right before us tonight is whether we would approve or disapprove this going to town council for their vote.
That's correct, yes, sir.
With regard to that, I hope that it's okay with the rest of the board that, yes, there are components of this that we can get behind and not get behind, but with regard to what's before us, it's an up or down vote for this one thing, and if those other items were to come back before us, we can consider or look at them individually at another time.
I agree. I don't think it's our place to break it apart ourselves. It's for the applicant to break it apart.
Absolutely. Yeah. So with that in mind, if there's no other discussion with regard to this particular item, what is the pleasure of the board? The staff, their recommendation was to not approve, and so whatever it is the pleasure of this board to make a recommendation either to approve or not approve the.
I move that the item number 3, South Brook Plan Unit Development Rezoning Request be denied.
Second. Get that. So the motion is that the request be denied. All those in favor of the denial, use your voting sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, use likewise sign.
All right, thank you.
Item number 4, Southbrook Phase 2 preliminary plat.
The last item we have tonight is Southbrook Phase 2 preliminary plat, and a lot of this actually goes off of the previous rezoning request. The applicant was hoping that council would approve the rezoning request and then this coming behind it, since it does not meet ordinance requirements as we're about to see, that it would be approved since the rezoning would be approved. Again, this is Southbrook Phase 2 preliminary plat. We approved the first preliminary plat a few months ago. This is the applicant of Southbrook, North Carolina, LLC. Again, location is Church Street Extension. This aspect of the 245-acre development is 194.95 acres. It is a conditional zoning PUD with R6 PUD and multifamily residential PUD. The entire development will contain 458 single-family detached. This Phase 2 will contain 336. This Phase 2 will contain 98 single-family attached lots. The entire development will contain 154. This entire Phase 2 will have 434 residential units in this phase. The total development is 612. Lot sizes, single-family detached, average is 8,547 square foot. Single-family attached is 2,200 square foot. They are proposing within Phase 2, 11.99 acres of recreational space. The recreational space in use for dedication of recreational space will actually be reviewed at the final plat to meet ordinance standard, although they do have to show it on the preliminary plat as well. Again, this is a planned unit development as previously discussed. It consists of significant amount of environmentally sensitive land as well as a Piedmont natural gas easement. The site required extensive research prior to the formulation of the PUD document and the rezoning to determine its land use usability. The applicant voluntarily conducted public meetings to determine the PUD that was approved by town council. Numerous meetings were held in creation of the PUD, and eventually town council approved it in January. Any aspects that are not within the PUD document go to all the other requirements of the town. For instance, the block length, since it was not within the PUD as an exception, it has to abide by the town of Winterville standards. This was the approved rezoning plan. This is the lot dimension, 6,000 square foot for R6, 50-foot lot widths, 2,000 lot widths or square foot for single-family attached, 20-foot lot widths. This is a cross section of the street that'll contain street trees as well. 28-foot back of curb to back of curb street within the subdivision as well. This is the site we're looking at. Since we've already gone over that, I'll go ahead and skip to the actual site plan or preliminary plat. I've got it in front of each of you as well. It's a little bit harder to see on the screen. It's a lot going on within this development. It is broken up into phases. Again, I ask that you look at the plan in front of you for clarity. It's a little bit easier to see as it's
Stephen, can I interject?
Yes, sir.
Just a second.
Yes, sir.
So this plat is based on the fact that the previous item would have been approved, the rezoning would have been approved, or is it based
yes,
on
but regardless, it still would not have met the town standards because the council would have to have approved, or council has to approve his proposed PUD changes for it to meet this standard, and I'll explain that right here in a second.
Right,
yes, sir.
Because again, I think what we're going to is that if this was based on the fact that the previous item would have been approved, then this item here is outside of what was originally approved. So, you know, I'm just trying to be mindful of you having to go through everything to get to.
Yeah, well, I'll try to speed it up, and if anybody has any questions, just let me know. Absolutely. This is the preliminary plat right here. This is showing Phase 2A, Phase 2D. This is showing Phase 2B and Phase 2C. Some of the highlights of this subdivision, again, it has open space and common area, minimum of 1,800 square foot heated space, 2-car garage, architectural shingles, no duplicate elevations side by side across the street or diagonal to each other, 1,600 square foot heated for attached. Again, tree-lined streetscapes. If approved, the construction drawing submissions will be required for review by the Technical Review Committee. Once construction drawing and improvements are completed, a final plat would be required. Staff is recommending denial of this final plat as it does not meet the Winterville's town standards.
You said final is preliminary.
This preliminary plat, thank you. And it has not been approved by the Technical Review Committee. This block right here exceeds our 1,200 foot maximum block size. Town staff has also requested that this cul-de-sac be connected or redesigned to some extent. There are multiple cul-de-sacs within this neighborhood, a lot of which are bound by environmental or other site issues. This one, we did not see an issue with this one becoming reconnected to Casino Drive or redesigned in some way to remove this cul-de-sac.
Stephen, I'm going to interrupt you there, please.
Yes, sir.
It was stated earlier, if I heard correctly, that it was redesigned because the town of Winterville is considering purchasing property there? Is that what I heard before?
That's what I heard as well. That's the first I've heard of it.
Okay, because this past week, there was a closed session of the town council with regard to real estate. Is there anything here that we should know at this board?
Not that I know of. I don't even know of anything in regards to purchase agreement.
That there was a redesign made because of the town of Winterville approached the developer about purchasing property, is that correct?
I am not aware of that at all.
Scott, excuse me, did you say that earlier?
Would you like for me to? Okay.
But that was you were dealing with that cul-de-sac and that before it went into that property.
So this Middlecrest Drive, we're asking to connect that or redesign it. Middlecrest Drive itself is outside of the single-family attached zoning area. It does not change the number of units. Staff, if council would agree, could see a modification on a preliminary plat to allow single-family attached in this area if council believes that the modification is of equal or greater value. The applicant is requesting approval of the preliminary plat, proposing that the proposes are of equal or greater performance. Again, that this single-family attached in this location is of equal or greater, that no connection or elimination of a cul-de-sac is of equal or greater, and that this block length is of equal or greater than our subdivision ordinance. Therefore, staff does recommend denial and resubmission. If council agrees, staff is trying to find a good way for the applicant to move forward on this. Staff believes that a redesign of the block and a redesign of the Middlecrest cul-de-sac with a resubmission, if council agrees that the proposed single-family attached location near Middlecrest Drive is of equal performance, then presented on the, as presented on the preliminary plat, then town council could approve that as a modification. This recommendation is also based on the following: that Branchside Circle, Wild Olive Court, Streamwood Place, Fresh Meadows Court, Trailside Lane are appropriate cul-de-sacs that are the result of topography or environmental features on the site rather than the attempt to avoid interconnectivity. Again, these are the remaining 6 cul-de-sacs. We are requesting this one to be removed at this bottom. And if town council agrees, the belief is that these cul-de-sacs are the result of the topography of the site as well as environmental sites. Staff is recommending denial as Southbrook does not meet the standards of the town of Winterville, and it is not producing equal or higher performance standards. Does anybody have any questions of staff? Thank you. We do have the applicant here as well. Were you?
Yes, I'd like to hear from you.
Oh, gotcha.
If it pleases the board, I do have a small presentation to make. Do we have that?
Did you have 2 over here?
Sorry, man, you left me in a, how do we start the slideshow? Thank you. Nope, still not doing it. Very carefully. For some reason, you know what? Okay, before I get into the presentation of this preliminary plat review, now that we have denied the PUD, it means that everything in the PUD remains the same. So all the revisions continue to have to go back. The block length is not an acceptable, or the mid-pedestrian is not the acceptable form of creating blocks. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So that the original PUD is still intact. So the changes, there are really only 2 things that staff and myself disagree on, and that is the block length, which we've talked about, and then the Middle Crest Drive cul-de-sac removal. So those are the 2 things that I'm going to cover with you tonight. It's not that the PUD can continue to operate, and this plan can still operate with the existing PUD as it is. But the planning board will have to make some adjustments, and I'll talk about that here in a second. So we can stay right here on this slide. So given that we were asking for the mid-pedestrian block connection, which is that area that he had showed, it really leaves us in one location, and that is we have 2 block lengths in Middle Crest Drive and Trailside that are, again, 150 feet over the requirements. So due to all of the environmental constraints that we talked about and the Piedmont Natural Gas, what we are requesting, since the PUD was denied in the mid-block pedestrian connection, we probably would still be built even still, but we would ask for a variance of the ordinance of 150 feet on both of those. And I think, and if staff is right, that blue area, we don't have the ability to do anything else, so that was an acceptable design. So as a part of this request, and this alone, we're asking for a variance of 150 feet. We will continue to honor and build the mid-pedestrian block as shown, along with having crosswalks, and all of those things that were necessary to make it really stand out as a crossing area. So as far as what we present tonight, that is what I would provide in the preliminary plat for that. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Oh, no. That's it. Good. Okay, as designed in the original PUD on the left, all of the and we talked about this a good deal, but I'll cover it again. So all of the single-family attached were developed within their own clusters, and they do not share road frontages with the single-family detached homes. This created that unique feel, the pod development, the sense of home product placement within the community without commingling different product types along the same street. The design is very intentional for establishing the vision of the community and was supported by the planning and town boards from the onset. Now, as I said, in the PUD design, the town did reach out to us regarding that 6 acres. Sorry if I'm exposing any state secrets at this point, but they are definitely interested in wanting to purchase that from us. We don't have any purchase agreements other than they would like to move forward, and that hence the change in the revision. So I've been working with the assistant town manager on that. So obviously he was here, he could speak to that as well. But that is at least something that they had shown interest in us in wanting to move forward with. So that is all the information that I have at this time. Now,
let me comment there.
Yeah.
If they didn't meet in closed session, then they obviously took no action on that.
They met in closed session.
They met in closed session, but they did not make a decision and subsequently come out and make a vote after the closed session.
And they couldn't either, because there are other things that are required for purchasing the property, like doing a boundary survey and actually doing due diligence on the property that need to be vetted out. But I'm merely just reporting on where we stand and why we're making this change, which I think is important of why we're proposing what we are. So the change in other site constraints has really led us, again, in relocating to the south of the Neuse River Basin. So can I go to the other slide, please? Now, that resulted, as we've discussed, in two cul-de-sac single-family attached areas, and both within Phase 2A. Both of those items are adjacent to those two prongs of the Neuse River Basin, which limits our options. And as we began to design this section, the prong along Middle Crest Drive, everything's going, where's our? Middle Crest Drive. Let's see here. Yes. This is the one we're talking about now. This one right here. The one that he was. No. Okay. It's this area. This is a 6-acre area that the town is supposed to.
That cul-de-sac there is not the one.
No, no, that's correct. Yep,
But
that's,
but
that,
it was in the original PUD document.
yeah, I mean, in the original approval, we show stubbing across the Neuse River Basin and developing those 6 acres for single-family attached.
And it would be the area to the left of what is that, Streamwood Place?
What we're talking about with here
Yeah.
is located right about here. That's essentially that, and there's a cul-de-sac right here, and that's how that, because this now, instead of having a large area here, that's what this cul-de-sac is right here. So the cul-de-sac here comes up short here. So hopefully that clarifies that portion of it. So, so when we began to design this section, the prong along Middlecrest, which I just showed, was adjacent or is adjacent to a large water quality basin, which is here marked as SWQ. So that's surface water quality to the west. This basin is going to be fairly substantial in size and will treat all the runoff in this area from our community. Now, staff is requesting that we join Middlecrest with Casino to the south, but I'm not in favor of this for several reasons. I wish we had said this earlier, but the reason also why I want to keep this area so large is they're having concerns about saying that there's flooding and that they're going to receive all of our water. We have to design this so that all of our areas and our water flow directly to this pond and that it's held and that it's treated. So this is not a matter of just throwing up 612 more homes and the floodgates open on Brookstone. And I would have loved to, and maybe I can get that gentleman's information so I can reach out to him afterwards and kind of go over all of this with him. But I just wanted to make that kind of clear. But we also are really adamant about keeping this and needing to keep this in the size that it is so that it can receive all the water in those low-lying areas. So I just kind of want to just make that point. So
Bear with me a question, because it comes up at town council meetings often. You'll have to do with piping, not swales, correct?
oh yeah, all this, yeah, absolutely.
But in the past, it's been by swales.
Oh, no, this is, you can't have a swale, if anybody has said this otherwise, it's not right. You can't have a swale development just pour into these stormwater basins. This comes from the storm drain pipes that are in the street that then feed underneath and then fill out into these areas. That's how, this is not a direct flow into, that's not how these things work. So, the reasonings for why we're wanting to keep this. One is that it goes against the original PUD approvals and the vision of that cluster design that I was telling you about, that we want to, again, keep all the single-family attached homes within their own POD development. Slide. So you're going to have to forgive my rudimentary drawing here, but I just wanted to bring this up for discussion purposes. But a roadway cannot operate with this type of turning radius that I'm showing for proper emergency vehicular maneuvering, which will cause the roadway really to bend more to the west in order for proper alignment. Now, as a result, and what we're talking about in making these connections, that's going to cause significant design issues, again, to that water quality pond. Again, it's already in a low-lying area, and we need as much surface area as possible to treat that runoff. Adding a road does one major item, and that is the substantial amount of impervious coverage that, again, affects the water quality pond. So you add more impervious, that's more that pond has to treat. So that's how those things work. All right, let's go for slide. Now, from a community and quality of life standpoint, we have designed a large open space at the end of Middlecrest, and that's that area that's shown in red. This serves as a terminated vista and is a key pedestrian point of interest for this area. And any roadway connection will eliminate this improved open space area. Also, and this is not necessarily a big deal for you guys, but it is how we design, this eliminates lots also if we have to make this connection as well. So since the single-family townhome, or single-family attached homes will likely have to have a sub-association and additional dues for building and grounds, we try to keep these blended area, or we try to keep it, these areas as separate as possible to be able to make that happen. Slide. So, just kind of in response to cul-de-sacs, I know that many people have brought cul-de-sacs through here, and I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but I just want to say that with the original design that is on the left through the PUD process, we had 7 approved cul-de-sacs. Everything that we have done with all the preliminary plats that are on the right, we actually show 7 cul-de-sacs. And it seems through with this review, planning staff is good with all of them except for that Middle Crest Drive. But what I do want to kind of show, at least in how we were planning all of this, is that we did show a cul-de-sac in that area, and that's the one that's in question. So we knew that we would have that backing up to some sort of water quality basin. Again, through the design of all of this, that basin is substantially larger than where we thought we would normally be. So again, because of this area that we discussed and eliminating this, the only ability to keep this internal to the site was to be able to bring it down here and then provide that cul-de-sac there. And that is the reason that we have proposed it as such. So really, it's just the 2 items that are before you guys with this plat. It's the block length item, which you can vote on, and you can grant the waiver, and you can allow us to have bigger block lengths for just those 2. And again, this area was already built with very long roads to begin with, likely already bigger than what the 1,200-foot requirement was. This was not an issue from the onset when we came through initially. So I don't feel that the design has not substantially changed from one to the other. So it's this area, and then it's this area road here that we were talking about needing the exceptions on. So if we have the granted exceptions for the block length, that would work for us. And then we're really talking about all the reasons I just gave about why we want to keep the cluster development with a single family attached, keep it in that area, keep it internal. Those are the only 2 items that are really where we don't see eye to eye on with these reviews. So that's what's before you this evening, just for the preliminary plat. Even if we don't move forward with the PUD, you can still vote on the preliminary plat based on its merits of the 2 things that I just discussed. So happy to take any questions that you have.
I always have a lot of questions.
Fire away.
Okay, at the pedestrian walkway between the 2, I'm sorry, I don't remember the,
You're gonna have to go back for them, probably to the one that has the colors.
Yes.
Good enough. Yep.
The red and the tan, the pedestrian walkway there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't cross the red one, it just ends at it, correct?
No, it will cross. We'll have to have some sort of crosswalk that's there.
And that's one of my questions.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to have crossings from the red, from the orange, that go all the way down. And again, this is the alternative that we're providing because the town ordinance only allows for streets to be built to break up blocks, where we're proposing a pedestrian, as we've done in other communities, a pedestrian connection that does that. And to your point, we've had success. It seems like you've had success in living in communities that have that as well. So we're still going to provide that. I mean, that is really key to making this open space work and making all of the pedestrian connections come up together. We still want to be able to provide that.
And I know it's not in your proposal, but what I would hope if you do that, if it is approved, that there would be signage, there would be marked crosswalks, and maybe a speed bump.
Well, the speed bump is going to have to be approved by the town because these are built to town standards, and that would have to be provided, whether a raised crosswalk or what have you. At this point, the only thing that we're wanting, we're proposing this, so if it got denied, we're still going to build that connection. We're still going to have crosswalks. We still want this for safety, and we still want people to know that this is where pedestrians are crossing. So whatever it is that we can do to make that signage, crosswalk, that's what we're going to do, because again, it's a huge safety factor in what we want to see. And that's what we've done in other communities as well.
Question about the phase 2. Thank you for the explanation as to why you didn't do the curve around. But now I have a different question. Is it not possible to extend, what is that, Timber Green Drive through? You'd probably lose one of the single family homes and a couple of the attached single?
Scroll down so we can look at it. Right there.
That's a good one. So Timber Green is at that southern lane. If that were to be extended to connect with Middle Crest, yes, there would need to be some adjustments on the attached. You could lose maybe 3 or 4 of the attached and maybe 1 of the regular units. So I don't know if that works into your matrix of how many units you need to fit in here, but.
Sure. I think under the, and to answer your question, if we're under the realm of we can just eliminate buildings, we can do anything. Right?
But you're just trying to keep
Yeah.
them separated?
I mean, that's the whole point.
Okay.
That's the pod development, so that we don't have single-family detached connected with
Okay.
detached. Yeah. I mean, other than that, and the fact that this serves all of the residents on Middle Crest that specifically. I mean, so I don't, yeah, I mean, we could eliminate lots and make connections, but at the end of the day, it doesn't, we're still trying to keep this separate. We're still trying to have that as developed, and we're still trying to basically keep it as we originally proposed, with all of this being contained in a pod of development for single-family attached.
Okay.
So these plans, this preliminary plan is based on your original approval.
I mean, yeah, we're trying to build this as close as we possibly can, and the only two areas that we've come up with is this cul-de-sac and the block length requirement. That's it. So if the planning board says, we're okay with 150 extra feet in block length, we'll grant you the waiver, then that would bring us into compliance there. And if you're okay with this design for the reasons that I've specified for single-family attached, well, then we've addressed the two concerns that are before you. And that was part of what I was attempting to do in the review of all this.
Any other questions for developer? What is this discussion amongst the board regarding item 4, preliminary plat?
I would recommend that we approve it. That's my recommendation. I make a motion that we approve.
Well, let me see if there's any other discussion before we entertain a motion. Any other board?
I'm still hearing that this proposal goes against Winterville's block length, block, street block, whatever you want to call it. And so that gives me concern.
Any further discussion? Board? If there be no, what is the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion that we accept the proposal, the preliminary plat. Again, I would adjust the block length. I lived in Willow Run, they had block lengths divided by pedestrian walks. It worked fine. There was no cars speeding up and down the road because of the curvatures. The cul-de-sac, it makes perfect sense to me.
Point of order, Vice Chair, you have a motion to approve the preliminary plat. Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay. Been moved and properly second. Seems as if we're divided on this. So, Don, if you can do a roll call for.
Do we have discussion now? I'd like discussion now, please, point of order.
That was the discussion was prior to, before you made the motion, so if that was the case, then you should have held off and continued the discussion versus making the motion.
With all due respect, motion was made and seconded. That's when you have discussion, and then you vote. I would like to have discussion.
Then we need to remove the motion,
After the motion. Does anyone have Robert's rules of order? Is it a motion, a second, then discussion?
we were having discussion prior to.
We were having questions.
No, we had gotten into discussion about this, and then I asked you that, prior to making motion, you made your motion and you continue to have discussion.
Okay.
So, but at this time, this time we have the motion and it's been seconded with regard to that. Are there any further discussion regarding the motion that is on the floor and seconded? Now will be that time, Mr. Kilman.
Thank you. I support the block length amendment and also the cul-de-sac. Seems reasonable to me, and that's why I support it.
This is discussion. Okay, again, I give pause because of the block length. I think perhaps I would need to hear, perhaps not tonight, more regarding why Winterville would be in a position to suggest even shorter block length. I feel like there's a reason for that, and at this moment, I don't have the advantage of knowing what that is. So I would not be in favor based on that. Thankfully, you have the experience of having lived in an area with that. That's one example. But again, because of what I'm hearing from staff, I would need to hear more to comfortably be on board with it.
Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve and second it. We'll ask for a roll call count. Don, if you don't mind.
Member Bell,
Not approved.
Member Cunningham,
Not approved.
Member Gardner,
Not approved.
Member Jones,
Not approved.
Vice Chair Killian,
Aye.
Member Luton,
Not approved.
Chairman Monroe,
Not approved.
Member Weldon,
Not approved.
Member Hostetter.
I approve.
That was 2 in favor of the motion, 7 against, so the motion would fail.
This item is not being recommended to town council by the planning and zoning board. Staff report.
So we would need another motion on the floor since that motion failed. If somebody was, oh, okay, that's what I was at, okay.
Yeah,
Motion,
The
Motion
motion
to
failed.
approve is defeated.
Okay, so it's automatically denied then?
Yes.
Okay,
The
gotcha.
council would not,
Okay.
this board would not recommend because.
Okay,
of the-
sorry about that. Nothing from staff right now. I appreciate you all for being here. I know this is late and it's a long night, and y'all don't have to do this, but it's really great for the town of Winterville, and I really do appreciate all of you for being here. If there's ever anything that I can do, if you have any questions, just let me know. Hope you have a great night and month. Thank y'all.
Any comments from the board? From board members? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, properly moved in second. All those in favor, use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting stands adjourned.
No, just my clumsiness.
Do what? Hey, was that your son? That was impressive, man.
Yeah.
I was impressed, man.
I don't remember. Dominique, what are you teaching for?
It was. I thought it was pretty good. I thought he was really good.
Oh, let's see.
Okay. At first, I was like, like looking over him, and then I was like, oh, I did see Dominic walking in. Yeah, it was impressive. It was.